Hello and welcome to the Street Crime Australia YouTube channel. Please don't forget to like, share, comment and subscribe. Today we're going to be looking at a dangerous criminal who would never be forgotten about in the Australian criminal underworld. Dennis Allen, who was also known as Mr. Death. With a moniker like Mr. Death, one can hardly expect the story of Dennis Allen to be that of a long summer's day. But even so, it is unlikely that even this dark and sinister nickname will prepare the uninitiated for the sordid details of the life and times of Dennis Allen. Mr. Allen was born in Carlton, Melbourne in November of 1951 to a crime matriarch, Kath Pettingill, of the notorious Pettingill clan. Kath Pettingill had been part of Melbourne's underworld for nearly 20 years by the time she had Dennis. She posed as a barmaid, but was in reality the madam of a number of brothels which dealt drugs on the side, and it was perhaps in this line of work that Kath had one of her eyes shot out in 1978. Kath eventually gave birth to 7 children, 6 boys and a girl, all of which possessed criminal records. Dennis Allen's childhood was bleak. He grew up around crime in Melbourne's public housing suburb of Heidelberg, originally built to house athletes competing in the 1956 Olympic Games. He lacked any significant male role model, as his mother Kath went through a string of boyfriends, none of which treated Dennis with anything close to affection. In fact, a number of Kath's boyfriends were violent towards Dennis, one of them even resorting to a form of torture. As a boy, a young Mr. Allen returned home from playing outside, covered in sunburnt skin. Kath's boyfriend at the time decided to teach the youngster a lesson by applying adhesive tape all over Dennis's arms and forcing him to remove the tape in long strips, taking patches of skin with it. His mother Kath looked on without interrupting. Mr. Allen racked up a long list of petty offences during his adolescent years, such as theft and assault, but took a major leap into the world of law breaking when he was 20. Mr. Allen brutally raped a 19-year-old girl from nearby Sandringham in her own flat. He was charged and convicted of the crime and was sentenced to spend 9 years in jail. Mr. Allen would actually only serve 6 years of his sentence and would not be wasting his time behind bars. His prison experience actually fostered his development as a criminal, as Mr. Allen walked free from jail with a solid education in drug dealing and a list of contacts as long as his arm. Mr. Allen was still fresh from jail and began working towards making a career from drug dealing when he was sent back to prison, breaking his license conditions. He was sentenced to a lesser incarceration for harbouring his younger brother Jamie, who was at the time 14 and an escapee from Melbourne Youth Detention Centre. After amassing a small fortune drug dealing, Mr. Allen was able to purchase 3 adjoining houses in Richmond in 1984 and turn them into the base of his operations. Mr. Allen dealt drugs out of the house he occupied, and he installed Mother Kath Pettingill in another, turning it into a brothel which sold heroin from a glory hole in the wall. Mr. Allen was able to pay cash for all 3 properties, despite officially being listed as unemployed at the time. Mr. Allen grew to be so rich, in fact, that it was reported that a massive amount of gold chains he frequently wore around his neck was worth over $250,000, which he then coupled with a navy blue worksite overalls. A large factor in the reason Mr. Allen's drug properties were able to continually operate for so long stemmed from the enormous amounts of money they made. Mr. Allen was able to pay off a number of high-ranking police officials and was a constant informant to the Victoria Police throughout his career. Even though outwardly he professed a deep saddened hatred for the Thin Blue Line, it is widely thought that Dennis Allen had killed up to 11 people. Some of these killings are easier to explain than others. For example, Mr. Allen would kill those competitors in the drug trade that he couldn't buy out or undermine with the police force. But the slaying of Wayne Stanhope is somewhat murkier in its motives. In the winter of 1984, Dennis Allen was at the home of his renovator in Melbourne, consuming large amounts of Southern Comfort and Speed and listening to horse racing on the radio to see how their bets had produced. As the evening approached, Wayne Stanhope arrived at the house and joined the party, who had now switched to listening to records on an LP player which belonged to Dennis Allen. Witnesses at the scene claim Mr. Allen and Mr. Stanhope acted as friends, even going as far to excuse themselves at one point to inject amphetamines in the kitchen. However, when Mr. Stanhope rose from his chair at one point to change the record, Dennis Allen pulled out a gun from his pants and emptied the magazine into Mr. Stanhope's shoulder and chest and head. As Wayne Stanhope was clearly lying dead on the floor, Mr. Allen removed himself to one of the bedrooms of the home, returning with a different pistol, which he also emptied into Mr. Stanhope's head. Although Mr. Stanhope was now dead, Mr. Allen continued his assault, requesting for a kitchen knife to slit the dead man's throat open. Mr. Allen then demanded that the stunned survivors help him dispose of the body. Mr. Stanhope's corpse was last seen being loaded into a Ford Escort panel van Mr. Allen had borrowed. His body has never been found, and a clear motive for the killing has never been established. Another gruesome tale, which no doubt prompted Dennis Allen's nickname, is that of the murder of Melbourne prostitute Helen Wagneg. In early 1984, Miss Wagneg turned police informant against Dennis Allen, her information providing police with a reason to search the property, which yielded weapons. In November of 1984, Mr. Allen was able to lure Miss Wagneg to the property. Over a period of 4 hours, Dennis Allen continued to offer shots of heroin to Miss Wagneg, finally giving her a lethal dose or a hot shot in her neck. Whilst Miss Wagneg underwent the throes of an overdose, Mr. Allen instructed an associate to fetch a bucket of water from a nearby Yarra River. Miss Wagneg's head was placed in the bucket and she subsequently drowned. Her body was then dumped in a river where it was not found for some time. Mr. Allen's most grisly and also most publicised killing was that of Hell Angel's bikie, Anton Kenny. Mr. Kenny had been kicked out of the notorious bike gang for providing information about fellow members, but had found a member of the Underworld who was still associated with him, Dennis Allen. It seemed that Mr. Kenny was aware that Dennis was a frequent police informant himself, because on the afternoon of November the 7th, 1985, he was at Mr. Allen's house to help celebrate Mr. Allen's 34th birthday and foolishly called his host a rat. David Allen's response was to stop drinking and fire 5 .32 caliber bullets into Mr. Kenny's stomach, proved to be fatal. Mr. Allen then seemed to take pleasure in retrieving a chainsaw and cutting off Anton Kenny's legs below the hip so that the corpse would more easily fit into a 44-gallon drum for disposal. The drum was pulled from the Yarra 4 months later. (1986) was not such a good year for Dennis Allen, however. His health and career were both literally crumbling. His body was a wreck. After suffering years of monstrous drug and alcohol abuse, it was simply giving its way. His heart was failing due to the amphetamine use, and his strength was disappearing daily. His career was falling victim to its own success. Mr. Allen had made his way in the crime world by both brutalising and undermining his competition, and now that he had begun to slip, there were no shortage of enemies willing to slip the knife into the once feared Dennis Allen. Witnesses to his most major crimes have now begun to come forward, no longer fearing the consequences as a result. Dennis Allen was in police custody in hospital waiting for the trial of Wayne Stanhope's murder when he died of heart failure. Thank you for joining us today. What are your opinions on the crimes committed by Dennis Allen? Do you believe he would have been found guilty for the murder of Wayne Stanhope? Please let us know what you think in the comments below. Thank you for joining us today. If you enjoyed this content, please don't forget to like and share. And if you're new to the channel and you want to see more Street Crime Australia content, don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell so you can join us on the next video. Thank you for joining us, and until next time, stay safe.